Welcome everybody to the Fiori Makers video series. My name is Tilman Swinker, I'm from SAP Design. With me here is Rainer Filsinger, also from SAP Design. He's our SAP design expert for Fiori Design, and he will do the review of our showcase today. Today we have the showcase of Thomas Nelissen from Flexso. He will show us his application FlexPlan, and this is for planning your flexible rewards budget that you can use. And without further ado, I will hand over to Thomas. Thomas, maybe you start introducing yourself.
Hello, and welcome to the Fiori Makers Call of August about the FlexPlan tool. I am Thomas Nelissen, and I work as an SAP developer and solution architect at Flexso. A lot of my projects involve Fiori, but I also like to explore the latest innovative technologies like conversational UI, machine learning, and IoT. I work at Flexso. Flexso is an SAP partner based in Belgium and Austria. We are a team of 250 experts, fully specialized in SAP solutions, both on-premise and in the cloud. We like to be an early adopter of SAP technology, and we really like initiatives like the Fiori Makers Club because it is 100% in line with our DNA at Flexso. And it's definitely the message that we also want to spread to our customers. Knowledge sharing is also in our DNA. So if you want to find out more about the projects we work on, I invite you to check out our website for customer cases and references. So now you know who I am. I will tell you why I'm here today. I am here to showcase the FlexPlan tool, which is an application that we built together with our customer KBC. KBC is a large Belgian bank and insurance company, and the target group of this application is the 15,000 Belgian employees of KBC. So there is really only one persona or actor in this application, and that is a group of Belgian employees of KBC. Now the application, the FlexPlan tool, allows KBC to offer a flexible way of rewarding their employees. So instead of giving their employees a standard package of benefits, KBC chooses to offer their employees a monthly budget, which they can spend individually on benefits they choose themselves. So with this FlexPlan application, an employee can go shopping for fringe benefits like a lease car, a bicycle, smartphone and data plan, or additional leave days, etc. So how did we approach this? In the first phase, we collected the main business requirements into a blueprint. And then we had several UX workshops together with the UX designer, the IT project team, and the business stakeholders. And we after each workshop, we created a prototype, which was the starting point for the next workshop. So it was an iterative process to come up with a final prototype. This prototype was validated during ULab testing, where we invited several KBC employees with different profiles and different backgrounds, and we asked them to perform specific tasks in our prototype. All the feedback coming from these tests was collected and was included into the final prototype before moving to the design phase. Here you can see pictures of the ULab testing. In the right picture, you see the KBC employee who is working in the prototype, and the person next to him is guiding him. And the person in the other room is monitoring every move he makes to point out the design flaws. In our prototype, we came up with three different views. First, we had the overview, where an employee should be able to see his available budget, his currently already purchased products, and the products that are available for purchase. In the second view, he can simulate new products and see the impact of the new products on his current situation. And he can also generate a fictive pay slip to really see how much net wage he ends up with if he buys that product. In the third view, all the offers are collected and can be displayed, and the offers can also be approved or rejected. Here are some screenshots of the prototypes. Now, unfortunately, the screenshots are in Dutch, but I'm told that that's an easy language to learn, and all the amounts in the mockup and in the demo later are fictive. So this is the overview. And here you can see the available flex budget. Here you can see the currently active or already purchased products, and these products are available for purchase. So that's the first view. The second view is a simulation view. Here you have a form per product type, where you can increase the slider value to include a product with that value into your simulation. And then the last view is the orders view, where you can see all orders and you can choose to confirm the orders or delete them. Right. So for a demo, so that was the prototype. Now I'm going to show you the real application, and therefore I created a little story. This is Ben, and he's an employee of KBC, and he has a total budget of 750 euros a month. He already purchased a lease car for which he pays 500 euros a month, and also a smartphone for which he pays 50 euros a month. Now Ben is thinking about buying a new bicycle, and he is also wondering if he still has enough budget left. Is it possible to buy additional leave days as well? So Ben takes his smartphone and opens the FlexPlan application. Okay, so this is the FlexPlan app of Ben. As I said, he has a total budget of 750 euros and he still has 200 euros remaining. In his current products, he has a smartphone for which he pays 50 euros, and the smartphone is a Samsung Galaxy. And he also has a lease car for which he pays 500 euros, and it's a Volkswagen Passat, the model. Now Ben wants to know if he buys a bicycle, will he still have enough budget left to buy additional leave days? So he opens the simulation view, and here he can include additional products into his simulation. Now Ben already contacted a bike shop, and he explained what kind of bicycle he had in mind, and the bike shop told him that for around 60 euros a month he would be able to lease that bicycle. So he includes a bicycle of 60 euros into his simulation. So that leaves him 140 euros left to spend on holidays. So he opens the Flex Days tab to include holidays into his simulation. And for one day he would pay 30 euros a month. So he perfectly has enough budget left to buy the maximum allowed amount of days, which is 2.5. Now here Ben can also calculate the impact on his net wage. With this screen he can generate a fictive payslip as if he were to have these products and see how much net wage he would end up with in the end of the month. Now unfortunately I cannot demo this functionality because I do not have a connection with a backend system. Okay, so Ben contacted the bike shop and he asked them to create an offer for that bicycle, and the bike shop sent that offer to KBC, to the company. So the offer is visible here in this orders view. Here you can review the order. You can see the quote number, the model. You can see that it's a 36-month lease and that it would cost him 60 euros a month. And he can choose to confirm that offer. So here in this view, he can confirm the offer. Okay, so now he confirmed the purchase of the lease bike. And he can also buy the holidays. Now a lease bike is sold by an external vendor, but holidays are not sold by an external vendor. They are sold by the company itself. So the holidays can be purchased directly in the application. So here in this dialog, Ben can choose to buy 2.5 holiday. And there you have it. He successfully purchased a bicycle and additional holidays. So let me get back to my presentation. Ben now has additional holidays and a new bicycle, and he can take that bicycle and those holidays to take a trip on Hana Island in Hawaii and ride on his new bicycle. So thanks to the FlexPlan application, Ben and his colleagues are now able to spend a part of their salary on benefits they prefer. To conclude my presentation, I wanted to share my key takeaways. First of all, the ULab testing is a great way to validate a prototype. In our case, 80% of the test users pointed towards the same design flaw, so it was really easy for us what needed to be changed. Then the iterative prototyping is really a great approach to come up with a prototype, and just generally clear upfront design leads to a better user stories, and it just benefits the entire project team and result. So that concludes my part of the presentation. I hope you are as curious as I am to find out what the guys at SAP did with it.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for the presentation. Thank you for showing us FlexPlan. I think it's a great tool to help employees to plan their flex budget. but that's just my opinion. What does the SAP design expert say? Rainer.
Thank you, Tilman. Yeah, I would say, first of all, great application. I would say tax regulations make fun. So why don't we have a look at the application review now? And afterwards, I will show some alternative designs. So before I start talking, I should probably first introduce myself. So my name is Rainer Filsinger. I'm a user experience design expert at SAP, working 18 years for SAP and 3 years in the area of SAP design. So in the past years, I already reviewed a couple of decades, so something between 200 and 250. And so that's what I'm basically doing right now with our FlexPlan use case. But before I start with the actual review, I should probably say some words on the use case that we have just seen. So we first of all think that this is a real excellent use case for the Fiori makers. It shows really how it can really make fun to work with such an application that basically has a quite dry topic like taxation rules, but it wonderfully shows how you can simplify such a process. You can get rid of all the things that users actually do not want to deal with, like regulations or rules, and concentrate on the actual use case. And I would even say by simulating the FlexPlan, it is really fun working with even. So let's have a look at the single pages that we have seen, or the single screens that we have seen, and review them by having the Fiori guidelines in mind. So first of all, the tab bar that we see, a tab navigation only allows text rather than icons. So following our internal guidelines, internal and external guidelines, icons can only be used for anchor navigation, and if you want to make use of a tab navigation, we should only use text. The next thing is the chart itself, and the chart actually offers a couple of navigation means that all lead to the same result. So we have a clickable month below the single stacked columns. We have the columns that we can click, and we even have a paginator at the top that we can click. And this is probably a little too much, and as you will see then in my mock-up later on, is that I simplified it a little bit. Then in the following section, we see a little repetitive text, so like flex budget used or end of contract schedule is repeated, and by making probably use of a table, we can get rid of such repetitive text. Then we have a couple of different buttons in the next section for information, for perform product simulation, and for choosing a product. And again here, this is a little too much. It is, I think we can make it a little more simple here. The status currently is conveyed in all caps font. But following our guidelines, we should rather use mixed font, because we have found out that mixed font is much easier to read. In the dialog that we see here, we have an icon in the header where I have to say I personally like it a lot. However, following our rules for consistency, there shouldn't be such icons in the header. Below, we see a couple of disabled fields. Disabled fields always make sense when there is a sort of switch and you can enable them and edit the field content, which is not the case here. And therefore, we should rather use display fields than disabled fields. In the number of days input field, it's a step input field, and I like a lot that while we input here the number of days, there is a sort of counter below. However, the counter has a little, or the input field itself has a little too big margin, so that one might probably think that the counter below does not really belong to the field itself. So I would follow a little bit more the rule of proximity and put it a little closer to the input field. Then there's a very tiny alignment issue, so all elements in the content area should be horizontally aligned, and therefore I would suggest to push the checkbox a little bit more to the right. And talking about pushing, we should also push the purchase button to the left and the close to the right. This is the way that we usually following the read direction, and the important button, the most used button, should be displayed at the left and the close at the right. And I would also suggest that you emphasize the button with a blue background and do not use the green button. Here we have a dialog that should actually be replaced by a message box. So in order to convey success of a specific operation, we usually use message boxes, which are much smaller. Moreover, there is a quite long text here, and I would suggest that we do it similar to newspapers that usually have between 60 and 80 characters in one line, and then we see a line break. So long texts in one line are quite hard to read, and therefore I would introduce 1 or 2 line breaks for the text. When we have a look at the simulation screen, we see here that we first of all did a separation, or that you did a separation between the FlexPlan itself and then the simulation. But as I will show in a second in my mock-up, we do think that such a separation is actually not necessary, and that we could wonderfully introduce or integrate the simulation in the FlexPlan overview itself. One reason why we think that we should put it together is the navigation that we see here in the lower section of the page. We have seen a product list before, and the products were listed vertically, but now the same products are listed horizontally. And this could be quite irritating to the end user, and therefore again we would suggest to put the FlexPlan overview and the simulation together on one single screen. We also see a little slider here, but the slider is missing a minimal and a maximum value, and which is also quite important, it is also missing the unit of measure. So we definitely should put here the euro icon next to it. Then the slider itself currently shows quite a lot of ticks. And following our guidelines, such ticks should actually only be used if they really mark also a single steps that you can input here. So like for instance, 600 euros and then 625 euros or so. However, if you want to give the user the freedom to insert any or to slide to any kind of a number, like for instance 600 euros and 12 cents, then you should not display any ticks at all. And last but not least, there are a couple of refresh buttons, so a single refresh for the lease car in this case, and also a overall refresh for all simulations. And we think that this should rather go reset than refresh, because a reset sets all the values back to 0, and that's exactly what you want to do here. And the refresh is rather a simple refresh of a screen. When we have a look at a dialog which calculates the impact on the net wage, we again see a couple of disabled fields, and similar to what I have said before, we should also replace such disabled fields by simple display fields. The last section with the lease car is rather tricky because before we have used a select box to choose, for instance, a CO2 range. But now, as we calculate the exact impact on the net wage, we now need to insert the correct number, the correct CO2 number. And we do think that this is still a sort of repetitive and could be probably fused into one single step. And the same is actually true for the list price as well. So that's it for the moment, and now I would like to share my mockups with you in order to show you an alternative option, and probably also an option that looks a bit more into the future with a couple of very different screens. So let's have a look at this now. So first of all, I would like to show you the review of the actual application that you just demonstrated without many major changes. The next step that I would like to do after my review is to give you another idea on how we would probably set up the FlexPlan application. You will see that we are very close to the one that we have seen from Thomas, because it is already really excellent. The most important thing that we did is that we removed the simulation, as I already mentioned, and tried to put it into the plan overview screen. So first of all, we have introduced a header and have put the key figures into the header itself rather than just on top of the chart. So we see now the total and the remaining flex budget being displayed in the header, followed by the actual chart. And below we have then first of all the list of products. And other than before, we did not offer areas that you can expand and collapse, but we have put everything into a table. The table is quite easy to read since it holds the main information in the column headers and then the actual values below. And if you want to get more information, like for instance details on the flex days, you can, on the smartphone, you can simply click here in order to read the details, and everything is displayed in a quick view. And at the bottom of the quick view, you have also the option to get more information by clicking on this link here, and then you would go to the web page that we have seen before being displayed as an info button within the area. Similar in the lower area where the products that are available to us are displayed. So we have, for instance, here the lease bike, where we can read about the actual benefits, and the extra information, more information, is then again conveyed via such a button within the quick view. Talking about simulation, so as you have seen, we do not offer the simulation tab anymore. So everything is integrated in the plan overview tab. And by clicking here on the arrow next to the lease car, it gives the user the chance to start the simulation right in this area. Most of the fields are exactly the same as we have seen before in Thomas mockup. We simply now added some details, like for instance the min and the max value and so forth. By clicking on impact on the net wage, we now see that everything is displayed again in such a dialog. Within the dialog itself, we weeded out some unnecessary information. We tried to display it as clean, as crisp as possible. And what was quite important to us is that we pushed this information that we see here. So please enter the CO2 values from the top of the dialog into the area itself where this information belongs to. And the rest of the fields here are displayed as input fields where the user can directly input its information. What we also did here, so you might miss the reset functionality here in the footer toolbar, but as reset is a global action and rather than a finalizing action, we think that the reset all should be displayed here at the top of the application. Okay. Then Thomas has also demonstrated on how to purchase flex days, and let's have a look how it looks in my mockup. So when we click on purchase flex days, this dialog opens, and as mentioned before, we have now shifted from disabled input fields into display fields, and only the step input is now editable, and the according and outstanding days are then directly showed after the input field. Like in many web scenarios that we know, it is also very important that a user confirms terms and conditions before he or she orders the flex days. And therefore we have simply disabled the order button, so the user cannot do anything, just canceling the dialog itself. And only by clicking here on the checkbox, now the order button gets active in the dialog toolbar, and the user will then be able to order the flex days. So this should be quite self-explaining to the end user. After having ordered the flex days, the user gets a very simple success message via a message box. And as mentioned before, we have now changed the information that was displayed in a very long line and just introduced a couple of line breaks. Last not least, let's have a look at the order screen, which is really very similar to the one that we have seen on Thomas' mockup. There are some few changes, like for instance with regards to the deletion of single products here, rather than offering a quite big delete button. We simply integrated this delete functionality at the very right side of each line item, and by clicking on such an X, the user gets asked whether this should really be removed, and then the user can click on delete and it is gone. Then we have also seen a simulate button or a add to simulation button in Thomas mockups, and the little issue that we have seen on this screen is that we do a specific action, adding it to a simulation, but then actually nothing happens. And the user has to navigate back to the actual simulation in order to see then the influence of the action that we just did. And we thought that we should rather connect a little bit more a selection and the according action by making use of such checkboxes here. And when we, for instance, check one or several of these boxes, the product is getting added to the simulation, and then the simulate button here in the table header bar is then active. So again, when I remove it, it is disabled, and when I tick one or several of these checkboxes, it automatically gets enabled, and the user can click now on simulate and would then jump back automatically to the simulation screen in order to see the influence of our actions that we recently did. So far so good. You see it's rather very small and tiny changes. As already said, Thomas' application was really great so far. However, we had also a couple of different ideas in how to make this application maybe even more interesting or even more easy to use. And that's the one that I would like to show you now. So first of all, I did not work out each and every detail. I simply would like to show you the flow that we had here. And so our main approach was to concentrate everything on one single screen, actually. So we have one main screen that gives me the overview, that shows me all the orders, and that also shows me the simulation at one glance. So first of all, we again have this screen with the chart, and then with a list of the current products that we have. And if you now want to add more products, we can simply add them here by clicking on the plus icon in the table header bar. And let's, for instance, add a new lease car here. And then we make use of the flexible column layout. So everything that we have seen before is now pushed to the left, and it is displayed here in this area. And at the right, we can fully concentrate on the new product. And first of all, we want to also to give the product a specific name, so not just lease car and smartphone, rather than we want to give the user the chance to insert a specific name for it in order to make it better comparable at a later stage. And then after the user has filled out all necessary information, for a lease car it's more, for a smartphone it's probably less, the user simply clicks on add. And then the new product gets added to the list as we see here, and is now part of the complete list. However, it's not yet part of the simulation. If the user wants now to simulate this newly added product, he simply clicks on the switch here, and then it is part of the simulation, as you can see. Our idea goes one step further down the road, comparing to what we have seen before, and that is that we want to give the user also the chance to compare similar products, like for instance another lease car with maybe which is bigger or smaller or whatever. So let's simply add another lease car. Again, we give it a different name, and this car is slightly more expensive than the one that we have seen before. And when we add it, we should see it in our list in a second. Here we go. So we have one lease car here, and there's also the simulation of the first lease car that we have added. And when we now add the second lease car to our simulation, we end up with two columns. So at the left we see the simulation with car A, and at the right we see then a simulation with car B. And as we now have, of course, not the real estate to display the next 12 months, we have now integrated such an arrow here in order to scroll to the right or vice versa. And with this, we think that it would be, first of all, even easier for the end user, because everything takes place in one single screen, and the flex column layout will then be used in order to manage the actual details for the products. And second, we have now a sort of comparability in order to compare similar products and have a couple of variants in order to choose from. Having that said, I would like to hand over back to Tilman and probably start with the feedback.
Thank you, Rainer. Thank you for the review. And I think that's a great showcase to show that actually taxation rules can be fun and a great app to use. I really like the alternative designs because that really shows that there is no right or wrong. There are just different options, and there should always be user validation to make sure that's the best option for the user. And with that, thanks for watching, and thanks for being a Fiori maker.